question is, are you ready?
Throwdown Nation, we are live. It is a Saturday. We are rolling on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter /X, Facebook, and Twitch. It is episode 182 of the Throwdown, where we celebrate the art and sport of professional wrestling with a strong focus on the indies. I'm your host, Matt, and today we are throwing down with a UK-based wrestler, Big Deal Dante. Dante is making a big splash on the UK scene and is joining us to give us a taste of what's going on across the pond, and definitely looking forward to picking his brain. How you doing, Dante?
What's up, my friends? Across the pond, indeed. Just want to say that intro got me pumped. That was absolutely crazy. It's like drinking a shot of coffee in the morning. Though I don't drink coffee, I drink hot chocolate. Maybe we'll get into that. But yeah, amazing to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And let me direct your attention to the ticker running on the bottom of the screen. That contains all, or at least most, of Dante's social media accounts, along with mine. So do us a favor, if you aren't a follower or subscriber, please take the time to go to each of our platforms and do so. It definitely helps both of us. And looking over at the Instagram chat, we've already got a few people showing up. We've got Squinny Wrestling, Britannia Wrestling, and Call Rodney Tyrone. And
for beautiful people, hope you're doing well.
For those of you watching this live, if you have questions or comments, just throw them in the chat and we'll either handle them as we go or do a little Q&A at the end. So we'll go ahead and get started with the first and the most obvious question, and that is, how long have you been wrestling, Dante?
Well, yeah, so the long and the short of it is I've been wrestling for just over a year and a half now. I would guess probably around a year and 9 months, maybe 10 months coming up to. And it's been an amazing experience so far. The easiest way I can put this is literally flip my life upside down. Before this, I was spinning the wheels. You know, I always say this in life. I feel like sometimes you end up in these cycles where you do the same things for months, if not years on end. And that is how life works, of course, is cool. But for someone like myself, it became kind of tiring. And I felt like I needed something to chase, pursue, and really be serious about. Wasn't sure what quite that was until wrestling came along. And ever since I found it, there's no exaggeration to say it has not only saved my life, but gave me what I feel like is a purpose. It's gave me something to really work towards, to build a foundation upon. And that is what this stage of my career is. It's a foundation to hopefully one day leapfrog and catapult into something bigger.
Absolutely. So who actually trained you?
Okay, yeah, so the original name is Chris Royals. To keep a long story very short, originally how I found wrestling was I was walking home from work one day and happened to see a poster on the side of the wall that said Prize Wrestling, and long story short, thought I would turn up there with a broken ankle the day before, and became the best decision that I've made in a long time. But if you want to take it a step back second, something that I believe, at least looking back in hindsight, not something that I realized at the time, but why it is so important to chase your dreams of any kind, is because obviously I've been a fan of wrestling as long as I can remember, literally from the ages of 4 or 5 onwards. And one of the things that I realized looking back now is that probably I would say 90% of the stuff that I have learned or experienced through wrestling has actually been from the clips that I watched when I was a lot younger. A lot of the stuff that I was quote unquote taught is more so just ingrained in my brain from watching all these greats like The Rock, like Shawn Michaels, like Owen Hart, Jericho, whoever it may be. And so when it came to training, there was more so just unlocking those memories that I kind of had to replay in my mind. And so it's really weird to think that I could have gone my entire life without giving this a shot. But looking back now, I like to say that I believe there is some hard work, and I like to feel like I work hard. But also, I feel like naturally I was always going to be somewhat okay at this because with all of my experience through that, I feel like it's kind of just now bringing it into existence, so to speak. I'm now just replaying these clips in my mind and just reenacting it, so to speak. And that is how I majority of my wrestling now is how I study, is through online clips, through watching wrestling of all different kinds, from obviously WWE and AEW, New Japan, right to the bottom ranks and indie promotions, we like to call them. So I watch all kinds of wrestling. I feel like really that's how I'm learning the most of wrestling right now, is just through watching those clips.
Gotcha. So in terms of the early portions of your training, what would you say was the most challenging aspect of professional wrestling for you to wrap your mind and body around?
Oh, for sure. The answer to that is very simple. So to give it a kind of a background, it's something that when you first step into wrestling, of course, you have the preconception of the physical side, right? Like, this is going to hurt, this is going to suck. All these things are a lot more. When you look at the WWE side on the top, you see these wrestlers and they make it look so easy, right? That is the first thing that I think a lot of fans look at, is they think, well, they see these professionals who've been doing this 10, 15 plus years. And so there's almost that notion there that it's so easy to do and it's so easy to reenact. And then you try it yourself and you realize that, oh, wait a minute, this is not so easy. Like, this stuff sucks and it's hard. Because there's so many different aspects of wrestling. It's not just the physical side, it's the mental side, it's the crowd as well. And to bring it as to what I found the most difficult was the crowd, because again, like I said, fortunately for myself, not only was I watching wrestling when I was younger, but I had a trampoline in my back garden. And you know, the story, I was always doing moves. You know, I'm sorry to bring this up, but my teddy bear Joe, I apologize to him because there was many suplexes and body slams hit on Joe. He lost an eyeball at one point, so I'm sorry, Joe. But yeah, I'm playing my back garden, all can be back flips and front flips and all this crazy stuff on that. So that I was already not going to say, of course, good, because I still have so much to improve on. But I at least felt like a fish in water there. I felt like I'd done it before when I was younger. But the crowd work side, you know, the fans, that is something that I'd scarcely experienced before. And the only time that came close is when I did a small stint in dancing, and I performed in front of 100 people in like 2012. I did some dance routine there, but besides that, I'd never been in front of a crowd before. So that was for me by far the hardest thing to get to grips with, and I feel like it's one of the most important factors as well, because the crowd is one of the biggest part of any matches, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Well, as you can see on the screen, Francis N5F over on YouTube is saying a hello to you.
What's up, Francis? How you doing, brother? Hopefully your day's going well, and thank you for tuning in.
So, coming into professional wrestling, did you have an athletic or martial arts background before getting into the wild, wonderful world of sports entertainment? Yeah,
the beautiful thing that is wrestling, and the answer to that is no. Like I said, the closest that I'd come to it would be the trampoline side of things, and I don't really count that as an athletic background. Maybe you do, but yeah. And looking back, that's something that I'm thinking about real time, and I think I'm fortunate that I was just kind of from an early age able to do those kind of things. I remember one specific story where would have been about 9 or 10 years old, and I was around my friend's house in his back garden on the trampoline, and I literally done a backflip like I would at this point of just doing backflips regularly, but I overshot it to the point where I'd actually landed on the ground. And as you know, some trampolines, or most trampolines, are built with the metal bars, and this one had no net. So it was inches away from potential serious injury. I had backflipped and overshot, and if you can imagine, the trampoline was there, and I kind of landed like just off of it with my hands planted on the metal bar itself. If I had landed a few more inches either which way, my chin or head probably would have clattered with that iron bar, and obviously we didn't know what would happen at that point. So even when I have been in scary situations like that, my body kind of almost just helps me out and gets me in the right position in the right place. So I would say the biggest thing, or closest thing to athleticism, was that trampoline, because honestly, it made things in the ring so much easier, at least for me personally.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you've been a wrestling fan from a very early age. What would you say is your earliest wrestling related memory?
Well, that one is crystal clear to myself. But before I answer that, I'm very curious as to what yours is, if you don't mind me asking.
Well, I've been a fan since I was around 11, and I just turned 56 back in September. So my
Congratulations.
earliest, thank you. My earliest, well, I discovered wrestling as a kid in the state of Florida, and watching the old Florida Championship Wrestling back in the early 1980s, the earliest memory I have was the feud that was going on between Dusty Rhodes and Kevin Sullivan. Um,
Wow.
this was back when Kevin Sullivan had the whole satanic gimmick going on. And when you're 11 years old, Kevin Sullivan basically playing a satanic cult leader is some scary stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So that
That's awesome.
that was my earliest. What about you?
Yeah, that's awesome. So mine wasn't quite as scary, although we did have the Undertaker. If you remember what the Ministry of Darkness, that was probably as
Right.
close as that comes there. That was some crazy stuff when I was watching that. Would have been 6 or 7 years
Yeah.
old. But to take it a step back to my original, and it's as clear as day, my first ever dive into wrestling, so to speak, was to keep a long story short. I always like saying this because I feel like the world works in some magical ways, and I always try and take silver linings. That's an important thing in my life, not just wrestling. That even in the bad situations, there's always a silver lining. For me, my stepdad left at the age of 7, but when he left around 7 or 8 DVDs at my house. And those DVDs are what sparked my love for wrestling, is no exaggeration to say. And the specific first one that I remember watching, and I watched it over 100 times, was Chris Jericho's debut for Raw when he interrupts The Rock. That for me was
Oh
the
yes.
first, and I remember like it was yesterday, that the jacket, the sparkly jacket that he had, and Raw is Jericho, like that whole thing.
Yeah.
It was badass. And then from there, I watched those 7 or 8. There was another one, ECW, Living Dangerously was another one that I had, Spike Dudley and the Dudley Boys, and New Jack, these kind of people. And there was a couple of other ones, the McMahons, Shane and Vince versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I believe it was No Mercy, but I forget, with the ladder match. These kind of experiences,
Yeah.
those were all grouped into my first kind of forte into wrestling.
Got you. You know, what one of my favorite Spike Dudley moments is still Brock Lesnar's debut. I mean, when he basically just destroyed Spike Dudley, I felt so bad for Spike. I mean, well, Spike is a human crash test dummy anyway, but
he is the definition of a human crash test dummy. I mean, you have to respect how much that dude has gone through more in a year than we probably have in a lifetime, of like the amount of stuff that he has taken. He is an absolute madman. But again, to bring it back, that is what makes the magic of wrestling happen, because of course fans see that and they think all cool moves, but you have to think about what he's thinking about in the moment and what he's feeling in the moment, those kind of things that he goes through. I think I saw an interview recently. Oh, he was a part of the Dudley Boys and Jeff Hardy's the Hardys last match, right? Correct. So
yeah,
it's good to see that he's still somewhat moving and he's still somewhat about, because God bless that man. He went through an awful lot, I tell you that.
oh, he did. And interestingly enough, he is now working as a financial advisor.
I've heard, yeah. It's crazy. And like I said, I don't know if it quite brings the same thrills that wrestling does. I don't know. Maybe Colin Cash is getting him that, But, like I said, it's good to see that he's still able to keep himself busy.
Oh, for sure. So away from wrestling, what are some of your other hobbies and interests?
You know what? It's funny. The answer before I started wrestling, would have been gaming. But the thing that I've realized with wrestling now is it's kind of all encompassing. At least for me, I've always had the mindset that if I'm going to do something and be serious about it, I have to give 100%. I can't be half in, half out, give it 50%. So ever since transitioning into wrestling, I would say probably 80% of my life has been dedicated to wrestling. The other 20% has been work, like the actual income. But I live wrestling. When I'm not at the gym, I'm studying matches. When I'm not studying matches, I'm out there just doing push-ups in my bedroom at 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, it's back and forth. Like, I'm just trying to stay physically ready and mentally ready for any opportunity that comes my way. because I've not been passionate about anything in my life as much as I have wrestling. Like I said before, it saved me in multiple different ways. And the biggest one was just giving me a purpose. Before wrestling, I don't feel like I really had a purpose, as weird as it is to say. I feel like I was kind of just making money and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And now that wrestling has come along, I feel like that is the thing that I've been waiting for. So, yeah, I would have to say wrestling is what I live and breathe right now.
Absolutely. And you know, it sounds like you're basically taking the Matt Cardona approach to it and being always ready.
Yeah, and that's a truly inspiring man, honestly, because that is something that, again, I feel like wrestling and life have a lot of parallels, and that is something in life which I feel like you should definitely, like, being able to be prepared for that opportunity. For me, there is no worse thought than knowing that there was an opportunity that you could have grasped, but because you simply wasn't ready and whatever made that way that would have been, the opportunity passed you. I feel like if you at least were ready for the opportunity, and even if you failed, whether you failed or succeeded, if you at least try to jump at the opportunity and gave it all that you know you could humanly give, then I feel like you can have no regrets in life. So for sure, that is something that I try and adapt to my life.
Absolutely. But I just noticed over on the Instagram chat, Chris Page from CCP Podcasting just checked in, and he says hello. He's checking in before he has to do commentary on the show. So thank you, Chris, for taking a few minutes. We're having a good time, and you'll be able to check the whole thing out later. But you know, get to doing what you got to do, brother. So outside of, and you know, you were mentioning that at this point you eat, sleep, and breathe wrestling. But but outside of wrestling, what person inspires you the most and why?
Wow, that's a really good question. One that I'd not really thought about until just now. If I were to have an immediate answer in the top of my dome, weirdly, I would say probably Steph Curry, and I'm not even really a basketball fan. But from the things that I've seen of him and how he carries himself outside of basketball, not even inside of basketball, of course, he's gifted in basketball, but how he is as a person, I feel like more so that the answer just extends to anyone who I believe. In my mind, of course, a lot of things are opinion, and from what I can gather, anyone who works hard, that is what inspires me. It could be at any level, whether the top or the bottom. Anyone who's hard working, anyone who puts the time in, and you can see is hungry to achieve success. That is what inspires me. There have been a few people that I have seen in wrestling that have been the definition of that. One that comes to mind is Jesse Dynamite. He is someone who travels the UK, such as myself, and the most hardworking wrestler I've probably seen so far in my short career. The way that he carries himself, and not only that, the way that he does his business when it comes to merch, when it comes to touring. He went to Portugal recently, I believe. He's in Ireland and these other countries, Germany as well, I believe. So that is someone who, and the people in general, and like I said, anyone who's hardworking, in the back of my mind, I always see that and I always respect it massively, and then it pushes me to go even further.
Gotcha. So, what is your actual hometown in the UK? Well, where are you from within the United Kingdom?
So go to a specific name, or we would go Hereford, but most people more so know the city that's closest to, which is Birmingham. I mean, a lot of people outside the UK, I feel like they think we all sound the same. We all say water weirdly and all these different kind of things, but I love it. You know, it's a great community, and I'm extremely blessed. Something that I always try and take it in mind, because there's a saying, I believe, right? It's like comparison is the thief of joy. But for me, I've always tried to take it the opposite direction. I've always tried to use comparison to really appreciate what I have in my life. And I know there are many countries out there where people don't get the situations that I'm in, where people might not have food to eat readily whenever they want to, or, you know, a bed to sleep and this kind of stuff. So living in the UK, I've never taken that for granted. I'm blessed right now that I'm able to be in a place and be able to sleep and have food and keep working out properly. Because for me, it's you know, important, right, to remember where you come from and remember just how lucky we are to be able to be in the situations that we are. So I don't take it for granted.
Absolutely, brother. So, you know, you're still comparatively new to the business, and this may be kind of a work in progress still at this point. But tell us a bit about in-ring Dante and kind of compare and contrast him with everyday you.
Oh, 100%. And again, like you said, I've only been in this business for a cup of coffee, but not to sound too arrogant, I almost feel like my mind is already levels ahead because, like I said, the studying and quote unquote studying, the watching wrestling as a fan growing up, I kind of all that information I was taking it in the back of my mind, and it's come to life now when I do wrestling, and so there are a lot of similarities that I can see from 20 years ago, like I said, Chris Jericho and The Rock, that you can still see in stories today in WWE and AEW. They're the same kind of format, just with different characters, different wrestlers, whatever term you want to use. Because some things never fail. Like the good guy overcomes the bad guy, and then the good guy faces a hurdle and has to overcome that. Right, there are so many similarities. But to bring it back to myself, funny enough, I'd actually say it's a contrast to who I am as a person. I'm a very reserved person. Even given this answer is kind of awkward to me because I don't like talking about myself too much. But big deal, it's in the name. I'm a big flashy guy, right? Like I'm very loud as a character. I'm very arrogant. I'm very over the top in whatever way that may be. Very out there, always trying to seek attention, always trying to have the camera on me. Whereas me as a person, I'm really not that. I'm more than happy with my own company. When it comes to the backstage of shows, I usually just sit by myself and I write my own thoughts about what I'm going to do on the night. And I'm the last guy looking for attention. I'm the last guy trying to talk to many people. So there's massive amount of differential, in personalities between myself and the character, so to speak, of Dante. But also there are other aspects that are real. If we were to look at the quote-unquote good guy side of Dante, the fans are something that he cares about extremely. And I myself, one of the biggest reasons why I got into wrestling is because before I knew wrestling in terms of that specifically, I knew that I just wanted to impact people's lives in a positive way. And again, I didn't know what way that would be at the time, but now looking at it being wrestling, I could notice there were similarities where, like, you're not changing people's lives, of course. You're giving them that 3-4 hours to forget. You're giving them that time or memory that they will remember for the rest of their lives. Recently, one of my shows, there was a fan at the bottom of the entrance where I was coming down, and he had a sign with my name, a sign with a picture of me on it. And he got me to sign it, essentially had a pen there ready for me to sign. And that is a memory that I will cherish. I will cherish for the rest of my life, because I know without guarantee before I've even stepped into that ring that fan, that awesome kid, is going to have memory that he's going to cherish for the rest of his life. And that's what I really do that for. I do that because, there are people out there that, like I said, if they're going through tough times and they're having a tough day, sometimes all it takes is a couple of hours of seeing me get chucked around, and seeing me get, body slammed, and it takes their mind away from things. So I'm more than happy to be that guy in whatever way it sees fit.
Absolutely. So if you can narrow it down, tell us about your favorite match that you have been a part of thus far.
Well, that's another very good question. There have been a couple of moments that come to mind. If I were to go for one specifically, though, it would probably be not too long ago, maybe 2-3 months ago now. It was for a show in PWR. I believe it was in Birmingham, though I'm not sure. It was either Birmingham or Wolverhampton, but it was, I don't know how to describe it, then there was an absolute chaos. It was during Halloween time, of course, so to take a step back, it was a tag team match between me and Basher versus JT and Doc O'Reilly. And it was essentially like a street Halloween fight. I don't know how to describe it. There was pumpkins involved. There was stop signs. There was trash bins. There was Nemo, the fish Nemo, involved. It was absolute carnage. And what made that so special is because the fans of PWR are some of the best fans that I've wrestled for so far in my short career. They were with it for every step of the way. They absolutely hated me on the night, which I love. And they absolutely love JT and Doc. And that's all I ask for. That is my job in that night, is to make sure they hate me as possible so that they can cheer them even more. And there were so many awesome bits in that match that I will cherish forever. And it was the first or closest that I've come so far match-wise to where usually I could take it all in and be able to assess what the crowd are chanting and what they're thinking, what way they want me to go, because I listen to the crowd heavily. It's the biggest part of what I do in wrestling, is I don't like to have things telegraphed, so to speak. I like to do it on the fly. But that one, it was all a blur to me because everything was happening so fast. And the crowd with every single thing, oftentimes we get the crowd have a break and then they'll come back and then they have a break. That they were with us the entire way. Through minute 1 to minute 15, they were with us, and that is what made it so special for me.
Gotcha. Well, I hate to bring this up, but recently I had a fellow on the show by the name of Martin Cardia,
Of
who
course.
I had him on the show the day after he won the prize junior heavyweight championship from
Oh,
you.
don't say it, please. You had to go and say
So
it. Oh,
I had to. So do you have any words for Mr. Cardia?
no. No, I'm messing with you, of course. You know what? He's a very hard working individual. Maybe even harder working than myself. I think he goes to the gym 5 times a week, something crazy like this. But regardless of what I can say for him inside of his actions, what he done to me on the night in the ring, outside of the ring as a person, he is an awesome guy. He is someone who I can tell. And again, I'm not trying to be too arrogant, but I believe when it comes to wrestling, I'm super passionate, probably one of the most passionate people. He outmatches that. He is super passionate about wrestling, and that, like I said before, when I see those kind of traits, when I see that hard working or passionate trait, it just inspires me. And so that is someone who pushes me to go further. Because when I'm feeling not the best on a certain day, maybe I don't want to go to the gym on a certain day, someone like that comes to my mind, and I'm like, I have to go. I have to be able to keep up with these top tier talents, because if I don't, I'm going to fall behind. And again, it's something that I feel like is one of the biggest motivators, at least for me, is being able to draw off on other people's success, so to speak. Again, if he wins a championship, that is cool. I'm going to do everything and more now. I'm going to go to the gym 6 times a week just so I can win it back. So congratulations to him. Nothing but good things to say about the man outside the ring. Inside the ring, there's a different story. I'm coming for that title back, but outside the ring, awesome individual.
Absolutely. During my conversation with him, we actually discovered something that we have in common. He works as a paramedic for his shoot job, and I was a paramedic a number of years ago here in the States. I'm currently working in a different but related field, but we were kind of, when we went off the air, we spent some time telling war stories from our times on the truck, because that's an interesting job.
Yeah, and just want to say again, nothing but respect to all of you in that field, and not only that, but again, hospitality in general, the doctors, the nurses, anything of this ilk, because especially I can imagine 3-4 years ago during COVID times and that whole situation that was going on, the amount of stuff that they would have seen during that, I can only fathom. There was a film that I can't remember the top of the name of the top of my head. I think it might have been called Hope or something like this, but that was a story which told what a small glimpse of what was going on through the COVID times, and it was to do with a care home that was going through that. And again, it just makes me appreciate what, not that I try to downplay what I'm going through in my life, because everyone has their own issues, right, and everyone has to deal with it in their own way. But it widens the scope for me, is that when everything is looking dark for me, when I'm going through tough times, I can't really complain, because when you see stuff like that, it really opens your eyes, as I'm sure you can imagine and attest to more than myself.
It does, yes. So, you've been doing this long enough that I'm sure you've developed some of these, but what would you say is your biggest in-ring pet peeve?
Oh, you're asking me the tough questions today, I say. Oh my God. I don't want to get hated too much on here. I've already had a bit of slack recently. I don't want to be getting more hate, but if I were to give you an answer, and this is just me personally, again, as everything is personal, I think a lot of people forget that probably 95% of things in wrestling are opinion related. I think sometimes people confuse opinion with fact. So this is just my opinion. But again, if we look at what you were saying earlier of 1980s wrestling, 1990s to 2000s, something that I believe was so important and so pivotal in capturing that magic of wrestling was the organicness, if that's even a word, the spontaneousness of it, is to not be on a set path and not just do A, B, and C because that's what you said you're going to do before you went out there. It's to listen to the crowd, and it's to, just do what you felt was right in the moment. It's movies and wrestling are similar in a lot of ways in terms of storytelling, but that is what you don't do in a movie. You can't just do what you want to in the moment, because there's a set script and there's set things that you really have to stick to in order to tell the story. The magic for me of wrestling is being able to go, if you wanted to use the term off script, I don't like peeking behind the curtains too much, but I will for this moment, is being able to go with the flow. And if you feel that the crowd are doing a certain thing that they do want to see a different story, you go along with that. One of the biggest sayings that I'm a big fan of is if your crowd is a bunch of meat eaters and you're trying to serve them a vegan dinner, but they're probably not going to like that dinner. You know what I mean? And vice versa. If they're vegans, you're trying to serve them chicken dinner, they probably won't like it. So you have to be ready to flick a switch and go to a different pivot, because if you can't, then I don't believe personally, and again, it's just opinion, you can't call yourself a real wrestler. You have to be ready in the moment when you've got 200 plus fans screaming for something. You have to be ready to give them that.
Absolutely. So if you could only be one, would you rather be great in the ring or great on the mic?
Wow, that's another good question. Because it does go with what I agree with when I look at wrestling and I try and the few people that are willing to listen to my mad rambles. I do like to simple it down to you are either a good wrestler or a good on the mic person. Very rarely do you get both, although of course there are exceptions. Someone like Eddie Guerrero, I'd believe to be a massive exception. The guy was phenomenal in the ring, and then also on the mic, he could grab and pull your strings. Actually, quick story, at least into how I felt emotionally in the moment. One of the best promos I'd ever seen in my life was him versus Brock Lesnar, and the promo that he gave before that. I forget which pay-per-view it was, but that really, in the moment, you know, you talk about goosebumps and feeling a type of way. In those 60 seconds, whatever he had, that is what drew me into that match. That is what made me sold and wanted to see that match, because he really pulled at the strings, and phenomenal individual, Eddie Guerrero. So if I were to say one, I probably would have to go with promo. I would have to go with talking mic, because again, I feel like if you can give the fans that, if you can give them a reason to want to watch you either get beat or beat someone else, if you can give them a reason as to why they should support you or hate you, if you can give them a reason as to why they need to pay their hard-earned money to be able to watch your show and come and buy tickets, then I believe that is, again, a pivotal part of wrestling. So I would have to go with that.
Absolutely. And, you know, an example that I've got to bring up of somebody who is just otherworldly in the ring and really has only gotten exposure as a talker within the last few years, your countryman Will Ospreay. I mean, the guy was insanely good in the ring, but when he was over in Japan, he very rarely had the opportunity to get on the mic and do his thing. What he's done in AEW, you know, actually proving that he is among the best talkers in the world as well as the best wrestlers. You know, that has pleased me to no end to see his entire game. That guy is unbelievable.
Yeah, 100%. And something that I can relate to again more so in life than wrestling, as I've been here for such a short amount of time. But the more you do something, simply put, the better you're going to get at it. And the more experiences you have in different places or countries or whatever way you see fit. Again, Japan is something where, of course, being I'm sure you can speak basic Japanese, but perhaps not. I speak Japanese myself to some lesser degree, of course, but that is a reason why, because I want to go there one day. But however, to my point, when it comes to Japan, of course, you then have to be wrestling focused heavily. And so those kind of things get pushed to the sideline. But I'm sure as something as a wrestler, again, I could speak very loosely myself, very loose term, calling myself a wrestler. But even if the fans only see that you're wrestling and they only see that you do wrestling, you're always leveling up in the background when the cameras are off, when you're not at the arena. Like I said myself, when I'm not at a show, I'm always studying wrestling, so I'm always improving there. I'm always at the gym 3-4 times a week minimum, so I'm always improving there. I'm always trying to keep myself ready, and then I'm leveling it up. I'm making sure that when I am at the next show, I outclass the guy that I was at my previous show tenfold. I'm always trying to improve, because you're only as good as your last show. You're only as good as last showing. And so when it comes to Will Ospreay, that is, in my opinion, a big reason as to why, because whilst they would only see him wrestling 3-4 times a week in Japan or wherever it may have been at that time, I'm sure backstage when the lights were off, you know, at his own home in his own time, I'm sure, because you don't achieve that amount of success without that hard work. So I'm sure he was putting in the hours upon hours, whether it be in the gym, whether it be learning different promos, different ways. There are some times where I'm in my house in the camera, just recording myself on the phone, trying different cadences for where I speak, trying different tones and different accents slightly of how I speak. And I'm sure Will was doing the exact same in order to become a better wrestler. So that amount of success is undeniable if you put the hard work and time in. And then to your point, when it comes to talking, I feel like fans sometimes, not to judge every fan because of course every fan is different, but I feel like it's human nature almost to kind of put them into a specific box that you see fit, because then it makes sense to you, right? This guy's a good wrestler, so he can't be a good speaker. Or, the Undertaker, he's majestic, but when he gets in the ring, he may not be the best. Like, again, it's all opinions. So I think when it comes to that, sometimes fans are going to want to downplay your success a little bit. They're going to want to downplay it or narrow it down to only one certain thing, when in reality, there are so many different aspects as to why you can be successful. If that's, I perhaps would have to guess. Again, I'm not sure. That's just my opinion, but I would guess that is the reason why. Because again, when you're at the top level, you cannot really just be a good wrestler. You have to be able to, like I said, draw the audiences in. You have to. You don't achieve what was it, 80,000 at Wembley or whatever that number was, without also being a good storyteller, without being able to draw them into that story. You can be a good wrestler, that's cool, but if you want to achieve that amount of success, like you said, you have to be a good speaker as well.
No doubt, no doubt. So, you mentioned that you are definitely a student of the game and that you watch a ton of wrestling. Do you have an all-time favorite match as a fan?
Wow, that's a great question. And I would actually say no. There's a reason why I would say no. It's because when it comes to wrestling, I feel like, of course, you live for the moments. John Cena, as of tonight, is going to have his final moment in the wrestling ring, and hopefully that goes well for him. Hopefully he's fine and healthy after. But what is so magical about wrestling for me is, and it's probably a weird term to use for it, but it's really never ending. There is always a next stop, right? There's always a next chapter of the story, so to speak. And when one story finishes, another begins. And so for me, when it comes to matches, I could say that I have a favorite. I could say all this, but I feel like the magic is that whenever that favorite match is finished, I'm on to the next one. I'm now looking forward to a different moment in time. One of the earliest ones I would say is, for me at least, what captured me as a fan was Jeff Hardy and Edge and Christian, the Hardys, I should say, excuse me. The Hardys, the Christians and the Dudley Boys, and the infamous tables, ladders, chairs match, the deal with that. But then beyond that, I didn't just stop being a fan of them once that match finished. I then wanted to see what they each did after the fact. I wanted to see what matches they wanted to next and what they did next. So for me, that's such a magical aspect of wrestling. It's the same with a movie. When a movie is all said and done, if it's really done well, you want to see what happens next. You don't just want to see the good guy win and then go into sunset. Sometimes you want to see that good guy go into a different adventure. And so I translate that to wrestling matches. I feel like if you're doing the job correctly and you're a good wrestler, you can help them feed into not only that story, but what they will then want to see what you do next. And I feel like that's something that I'm taking heavily into, to bring it back to the point you made earlier about Martin Cardi winning the championship, the Prize Junior Heavyweight Championship. Dante often trips and falls. That's probably been the biggest story of my career so far, is that I never always win the big one. The first year of my wrestling career, most of the matches that I was in, I lost probably 80% of them. And that is what I believe I am on story-wise, is that the fans are seeing me take those losses and they're seeing me trip over 100 times, but I'm going to get over 101 times, because I never give up. The cliche John Cena saying, I never give up, and I'm always trying to get back more and give more to the fans, and I eventually feel like it will pay off again.
Gotcha. So, and this can be present day or past, who would be a dream opponent for you? Who would Big Deal Dante love to have the opportunity to share a ring with?
That's a crazy question. I will answer both. I would say present day and in the past, because I feel like it's important to remember the greats. And I said this recently from talking about the past, and it's unfortunate how his story became, but Owen Hart for me was an absolute phenomenal talent, not just inside the ring, but outside, I'm sure, as well. Again, I didn't know him as a person, but from the stories I've heard and what has been spoken about him is only high praise for the individual. So for that reason alone, I would say Owen Hart. If we're talking more current day, then of course someone who sparked my second love, so to speak, for wrestling, because I kind of fell in and out of it during 2013 to 2017. There was times where I was sneaking in and out, and what really brought it back for me was Kenny Omega and more probably the Bullet Club when that whole thing was going on in New Japan at the time. That was like before I'd only known WWE and TNA, and then realizing NJPW, there's a different word outside of wrestling. There's wrestling in Japan and Spain and Mexico and all these other places. And then that's what really got me thinking, wow, like my view of wrestling before that was so small, and there's such a bigger scope of wrestling, and Kenny Omega really brought me into that. So I would have to say him.
Got you. So,
a quick question for you, sorry to interrupt you, but I'm curious for yourself.
Please.
If you're in the ring right there, right now, and you're one-on-one, who are you picking as your opponent?
You know, interestingly enough, probably one of two people come to mind immediately: Bryan Danielson or Kyle O'Reilly.
Well, Kyle O'Reilly, interesting one.
Reason being is for a number of years, several years ago, I trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I know both of those guys are real world BJJ practitioners, and you know, not so much necessarily in a professional wrestling aspect, but I would love to have the opportunity to roll a round of jiu-jitsu with either of those guys. You know, I would be fully prepared to tap my brains out for however long, because I'm certain they would stretch me and basically mop the mat with me, but I would have a blast doing it.
Yeah. I mean, it's about the experience. Whether you win or lose, sometimes the experience is what you cherish the most. And I feel like Kyle O'Reilly specifically, very underrated wrestler, but of course both of them, Bryan Danielson as well, talented in multi different ways essentially, and that is one of them. And again, I'm sure it makes a fan like yourself then appreciate even more so what they do in the ring, right? Because they're able to bring that legitimacy and that real feel to wrestling.
Absolutely. So, what is your favorite move? What is something you just really enjoy doing? And on the flip side of that, is there a move that you won't do or you would at least rather not do, and that can be giving or receiving?
Wow. Okay. So there is never a move I will turn down. I always feel like if it calls for the occasion and if it's in the right moment, the right circumstances, which is more important to me. I'm someone who likes to, again, you have to be telling a story of wrestling. You can't just do moves for the sake of moves. And again, just opinion, but too often these days do I see people in the first 2 minutes of a match throwing out power bombs and power drivers and, you know, Canadian destroyers and all this crazy stuff. At least for myself, I like to be able to elevate it, and the longer a match goes, or if the right story is being told and you're in a blood feud, that's when those moves come through. But to take it to what the answer is for my question, it'd probably have to be, I would say it's going to be a bit of a cop-out answer, but there's not probably one specific move. I can give you cool behind the scenes cut, so to speak, of how moves happen for me. So to keep a long story very short, where I trained, there was actually no ring, which I found has been a big hindrance to, you know, of course, wrestling, you need a ring, right? So not having a ring has been very limiting for me. And I realized this then when I had the opportunity to train in rings, the amount of stuff that I could try out and do there then is like a whole different world. I'm like, wow, I can actually suddenly use a ring and try out these different calls, these moves that I've been thinking about for weeks and months on end. And the biggest example of that was the first ever time I stepped foot in a Wales ring. Forgive the promotion, I forget the promotion's name. But the first time I was in this Welsh promotion doing a show for them, 40-man Royal Rumble, beforehand I was able to step in the ring and train like I always do. I always try and step into any ring that I'm at. And a sliced bread, if you know what a sliced bread is.
A five spread?
Sliced bread.
Oh, sliced bread, yes.
Yeah. So I had never attempted that move before in my life. I'd never tried it. I'd only seen wrestlers do it. Like Brian Kendrick, I believe, right, was a big fan of the sliced bread. So I'd seen him do that maybe weeks prior. And again, I never tried it before because I didn't have the training facilities to do so. So I'll never forget, I'd not tried it then even before the show because I didn't have the time and other people wanted to do their stuff. So I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to try it in the ring. It's in Wales for my first show. And if I fail and if I trip, it's cool. If I do it, then it's going to be one of the coolest moments, at least for me personally, selfishly. And that's exactly what happened. In the moment, tried it, and I nailed it. I hit it, and I was like, in my head, I'm thinking, oh, but this is so. And out in my face, I'm to play it cool because I'm like, yeah, I've done that before. Really, I've never done it before. And then there have been countless other moves since. Another one is a frog splash and a moonsault. These are things that I'm trying for the first time in those rings because, again, I don't have the facilities to. Perhaps maybe the moonsault's different because I had a trampoline in my back garden, of course. But so probably I would say, if I had to take a percentage, I'd probably say 20 to 30% of the moves that I'm trying out in the ring, I'm trying them for a first time. The final one, because it's come to my mind right now, was a suicide. Excuse me, I don't want to say that word, but a diving senton out to the outside of the ring. Like, people use that term, but like through the ropes. I never tried that before. And a wrestler called the Judge, someone who I've been to battle with a few times now. He recommended that move to me. He said, you can do it. And you know what? I said to him verbatim this sentence. I said, you know what? I don't believe I can do it, but if you believe I can do it, then I'm going to do it. And then come the match, I done that, and it went smoothly. And I had him to thank because I never tried it before. So I would say any move that I'm doing for the first time out in that ring is one of my favorite moves because the feeling that I get achieving that move and doing it for the first time, there's nothing like it.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And you know, I've definitely got to shout out a crazy move that I've actually only been exposed to within the last year or so, and it's actually courtesy of another guy from your part of the world, Mr. Leon Slater, and the Swanton 450. That is just nuts. I mean, I don't know how he manages to get his body to do that, but it's a thing of beauty.
That is an absolute, it's a work of art. And to talk about the guy for a second, again, someone else akin to Will Ospreay, who fans can see him do those crazy moves in the 450s and this and that. But I guarantee you, behind the scenes, when his own time, he is putting in that hard work to achieve that level of success that he has right now. And wishing him best because I'm sure he's going to move on to bigger and better things. And when I say bigger and better things, I don't mean in the sense of a bigger and better company. More so means for him as a wrestler personally, because oftentimes you can be at the same level, you can be at the same promotion for years on end, but if you feel like you're improving as a person, whether it be inside the ring or outside the ring, then you're more than happy to stay there. And I'm sure he's an example of someone who's going to go far. But for him personally, like I said, I feel like if he believes he is improving year on year on year on end, then it doesn't matter where he goes, he's always going to be a success in his own eyes. So props and shout out to Leon Slater.
Oh, for sure. And you know, the match that he and Javon Evans have coming up this evening against AJ Styles and Dragon Lee, that match is going to be absolutely nuts.
And Javon Evans, another one. I mean, the stuff that he does physically that is one. Again, I'm not trying to speak too out of term here, but like a lot of times now, because I watch so much wrestling, it is very rare, and I say very rare, when there is a move that I see that I'm like, that's crazy. Like I can't fathom it, because usually I put it together quickly and I'm like, I'll give that a go at some point. Javon Evans, that is one of the few wrestlers that I see doing things that I'm like, I can't comprehend this. I can't keep up with this. Like this is that guy is. And again, I talk about hard work versus natural born talent. To me, he's the perfect combination of both. He is someone that I'm sure is putting in hard work, not to take away from that, but then naturally gifted. I can't think of anyone right now more talented naturally than Javon Evans, because the stuff that he does, the leads that he gets with some of his moves they're mind blowing.
Oh, I know. And the crazy thing is, you know, if you take Leon Slater and Javon Evans and you combine their ages, they're still younger than AJ Styles.
Yeah. What is it like?
Wild.
It's like 40 something, like 41, 42 probably. I mean, it is absurd.
Yeah, they're both 21. But the crazy thing about Javon Evans is he has actually been wrestling since he was 13. So he's already an 8-year veteran of the business, even though he's only 21. I mean, that's just wild. That's just wild.
And again, I'm not going to do this too often because we could go on about every wrestler we speak about, but AJ Styles is another one. For me, I was introduced to him in TNA back in 2011, 2012 when Aces were going on, that kind of ilk, that storyline of TNA was, that's what hooked me into TNA. Jeff Hardy coming along, another one. But AJ Styles is, obviously goes without saying it, but he's phenomenal. He is one of a kind athlete, one of a kind wrestler. And I'm sure his story, his book is coming to an end, so to speak, in terms of wrestling career-wise. But as an individual, I wish him all the health and success in the world, because not only, again, does he seem like a phenomenal inside of the ring, but outside of the ring, he seems like one of the nicest human beings, and that's equally important to me. So, yeah, God bless AJ Styles.
Oh, for sure. And, I'm actually in the Atlanta area in Georgia, and AJ Styles actually lives about 20 miles from me, and I keep hoping one of these days when I'm out and about, I'll cross paths with him. It hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened
one day,
yet.
maybe one day. Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? So, knowing everything you know at this point in your life, if you could give any advice to your younger self, what would it be?
That's a great question. Just to point out before it happens, at some point I might have to relocate, so because my battery's running low. So if I move and you see me moving about, then I apologize for that in advance. Phones these days, technology these days, it's crazy how difficult it's getting. But a charger still, I can't seem to. It's literally like the size of my head, the charger lengthwise. But to answer your question, again, I'm also looking outside the scope of life, because wrestling is all well and good, but again, I feel like in life these last 5 years have defined and changed me so much, and the person I am now compared to who I was 5 years ago, there are so many differences. And the biggest one I would say, advice-wise, I would say just try and cherish the moments more, try and appreciate the moments that we have, because again, as we've said in the past, like Owen Hart, his side story, someone who was outside of wrestling, but someone who I believe inspired me to start the gym. His name is Joe Aesthetic. He was a gym influencer, and he passed away, unfortunately, at the age, it was a very young age, I think it was 30-something. And again, it really puts into perspective for me how life can come at you so quickly and how it can go so fast. And so I would just say try and enjoy the moments more and try and cherish the moments more. To translate that into wrestling, there have been many moments already that have come by and gone so quickly for me. Very early on into my career, maybe just under a year, there was a couple of fans that started bringing signs with my name on it. My name, like, to me, that means the world looking back, because they took their own personal time to write my name and support me and show support to me. Then looking more recently, I started doing merch for the first time. I brought out some photos of myself, and there was actually a few people that bought them. There was actually a few people that I was grateful and thankful enough to sign for them. And again, stuff like that now means more to me than anything, because they're showing their love. And to bring it back to the point, that they're giving me moments now to cherish, and they're giving me a reason to keep doing this. So I would say just cherish the moments more, because they come so fast and go so fast, and you have to be in life just living the moment and cherishing it.
Gotcha. So do you have any pre-show traditions? Any things that you try to do consistently before you walk through the curtain?
Not really. I think more so I kind of just live it in the moment, and just I'm always in my own mind, like I said before. When I'm in the backstage, I'm usually just in my own head, really, from minute one till go time in terms of match wise, because I'm always trying to think about what the fans would want the most in that situation. More specifically, I would say listening to the fans, listening to what they're reacting to prior. I try my hardest to watch every single match, whatever venue I'm at. I try and watch every single match possible. If I have the time, of course, depending on the situations, because I believe that you can learn even from those matches prior. And if you see a certain thing done in match one, for example, it doesn't get the reaction that they thought, you leave that out then. And in match two, if you see something get a crazy reaction, maybe you lean a bit more into that, or you continue on that. So I think, again, I think the fans are such an important aspect, the crowd is such an important aspect of wrestling. And so if there's any way that I can get an edge over that with the fans and hear how they react to something, excuse me, and I'm going to be able to play on that, and I'm going to be able to use that to my advantage. Other than that, I'm really just in my own head thinking of if I can do X versus Y, and just doing a bunch of push-ups or squats or the usual kind of stuff, making sure that my body is warmed up, and yeah, then it's ready to go for go time.
Got you. So, just kind of a quick rundown. What all do you carry in your gear bag, and do you carry anything unique or unusual in your gear?
Oh, that's a great question. And I'm going to have to run through at the top of my mind in real time here. But off the top of the bat, the most obvious one, of course, is the wrestling gear. I mean, I could probably go out my boxes if they wanted me to. I don't think many fans would find that a good sight, but I really could. But no, I usually go out my wrestling gear, of course. That's the basics. But then beyond that, of course, you need a towel because it gets hot and sweaty. There are a lot of venues that are really hot these days. Not within this time of year, of course, but in general. So you always want to be keeping clean there. And then, of course, that goes with the perfume and the sprays, of course, to make sure that you're staying hygienic. Sometimes I spray for my hair to keep my hair wet and bouncy sometimes, as well as the afro comb. That is something that Dante brings as well. I don't think there would be much unique. I always bring some form of fruit to shows. That's probably the most unique because obviously trying to stay healthy and make sure my food and diet is on point. So I'm always bringing, whether it be a pack of strawberries or bananas, I'm always bringing some form of fruit to shows. Other than that, you've got some water as well to stay hydrated, because my voice after every show without guarantee gets destroyed. Because again, I'm very animated, very loud. So those are things that I'd probably say are what Dante brings in his luggage.
Gotcha.
And then as you painfully brought up more recently, someone that is no longer in my briefcase, but the championship bout that I once had, there's now space in my briefcase, so I'm going to have to make sure that space is filled up sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. So something that we've done in all of these is we've let the current guest pose a question for the next guest. And so a recent guest of mine posed this question, and that is, what is something that you learned in your wrestling career so far that you wish you had learned sooner?
Wow, that's a really good question. Who else actually want me asking? Just because I always like to.
Well, actually, it was Martin Cardia.
Okay, there we go. Oh my God.
Yeah,
never mind. Take back what I said.
I didn't want to say the name again because I know it's.
You're rubbing salt into the wound at this point. No. So, what was something that I wish I had learned sooner? It probably would be just that. It would probably be what I said previously about the crowd, because of course, when you first start wrestling, you're in your own mind so often about, I need to make sure I do this right, and I need to be here for that, whatever the case may be. And you're so focused on that then you forget that you have to pay attention to the crowd. You have to be willing to pivot sometimes. You can't just stick to the plan. You have to be willing to go off cuff. And that's something that I believe is an ability that I'm focusing on and harnessing on more and more now. Again, when it comes to the matches and how they're laid out, again, not to bring it too far back behind the curtains, but I do not like, if people know me backstage, the one thing that they should know is I do not like we're going to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, all the way to Z. Like, I don't like how everything is so point to point. Of course, these days you need to have certain things that are talked about beforehand, and you need to be here for this. But for me personally, I love the magic of sometimes just going out there and being like, you know what, let's just listen to the crowd first 5 minutes. Whatever they want, we'll give it to them, and then we'll go to X, Y, and Z. And then we might do this at the end. If they react to it, we'll move to this. A great experience I had because of that was recently with Kevin Phoenix. He's an American wrestler, if you know of him. And he was an example of someone who, if we're talking match percentage, I probably knew 20% of the match before I went out there. Like he was like, we'll do it out there, brother. We'll talk about it out there. You know, whatever happens, happens. And that is one of my favorite experiences because in the moment, of course, I was new still. I was like, this is scary. But after the match had happened and we had an awesome match, I was like, I love that. That's what I want more of. And I'm also pretty hypercritical of myself. So of course, after that, there were things where like, I wish I'd done this, or I wish I reacted to that. And I always try and be my own harshest critic for that reason, because I feel like I can't tell where I'm at. I have to be wanting to improve every single time. But bring it back to your answer, would say is that is then being able to listen to the crowd more and really think, don't be so worried about in this move or that move. If you can listen to the crowd and pay attention to what they want, and you have a decent ability as a wrestler, you'll get by just fine.
Got you. So since this is part of a series, do you have a question you would like to ask the next guest?
Yeah, I would like to say, do you know how it feels to lose a championship bout? You don't, because you're not Dante, and Dante is crying, he's sad because he lost the championship bout. No, if I were to ask a genuine question, I'd probably say it would be one more so to do with life again and bringing it back. I feel like there are a lot of parallels you can draw. And so I would say the question would be, is there anything that you have learned in wrestling that you felt has actually helped you out in life in general? Because for me, there are so many different aspects. Like I said, just being able to appreciate relationships more, being able to cherish not only the bonds you make inside wrestling, but outside of wrestling too. There's a lot of awesome friendships I've made outside of wrestling. One that I made specifically that I'm super proud of her for recently is Saxa. Better on Instagram, I believe, is the Sax Appeal. But she is such an awesome person outside of wrestling. Talking to her backstage and down up to, but because how I recently bumped into her originally, was through a similar injury. She had a similar injury to myself. I separated my shoulder, and she had hurt a part of her body, and then we got talking through that. But then being able to get to know how she dealt with that versus how I dealt with it, and beyond that, again, other personal life things, the nicest individual. And again, that then takes it outside of wrestling, right? Then it's a life friendship that someone that I will back to nowhere and someone that I'll support forever because she is such an awesome person. So yeah, I would just say if there's anything in life that is also translated to wrestling would be my question.
That's beautiful, brother. So we're pretty much at the end of things now. So do you have any upcoming shows or anything at all that you'd like to give some hype to?
Of course, Dante is always ready. Dante is ready to go at any given moment in time. And the date, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, internet, because you always correct the people that you hate. The 28th of February, Southern Valley Wrestling having its first show, the first strike, and Dante wants to be on that card because, like I've said in the past, there are certain wrestlers on that card. They actually had their first match announced recently, which is going to be Zach Walker and someone else, but I don't know the name of because Dante is forgetful. What I'm not forgetting is what happens on the 28th of February because I'm going to make history. I'm going to be the first wrestler to have the biggest cheer. The fans are going to love me. The fans are going to support Dante. And Southern Valley Wrestling, you know where the money is. You know that Dante is going to be on that card. Get him on there. Other than that, I can't give you any dates because Dante needs to be everywhere. So much, in fact, that the dates are not coming to my head right now because Dante is so busy. But beyond that, what I will say is this, as we come to the end of the interview, of course, is something that I saw recently from Austin Aries, which I think was really inspiring for myself personally. I think it's something important in general because, like I say, the internet is such a weird place and so many weird things do happen. And you get sometimes names called that you don't want to. And of course, myself being the way that I am, there are people who say things that they don't really mean. And what I will say to them is simply this. I feel like it's such an important thing in life that if you have a plan, if you have a flower, you water that flower, you keep wanting to see that, you give it the sunshine, you want to see that grow. And if you see something you don't like, you don't pay attention to that, you don't feed that anything. So in life, I feel like it's so important to feed the things that you want to see grow. And if you don't like something, as in wrestling, whether it be death matches or any other type of wrestling, that is completely fine. But there's no need to hate on that. There's no need to feed into that hate. Instead, support the things that you love. Support the wrestling that you love. If you're a fan of death matches and you love seeing the light bulbs and the crazy moves and everything, more power to you. And if you love seeing the high flying, the 450 splashes and everything, we love that too. Support wrestling in the best way possible because ultimately, wrestling, and there are so many different aspects of wrestling that there is going to be natural divides. But if you support wrestling and you truly love wrestling, just show it love in the parts that you love. For me specifically, I love technical wrestling. I'm a big fan of technical wrestling. So like we said, Bryan Danielson or Bret Hart, these kind of wrestlers I love. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of death matches, but you'll never see me talk anything bad about death matches because I have the utmost respect for those people that do that kind of stuff. They put literally their bodies on the line when they do that kind of stuff. So that would be my message that I'd leave at the end here.
Absolutely, man. And two things that spring to mind off of what you just said. Not too long ago, I was actually fortunate enough to have Austin Aries on the show, and he is an interesting guy. I mean, what a great conversation, and just having the opportunity to pick his brain was just incredible. But yeah, that guy is something special, and to still be doing what he does at the level he's doing it at an older age is just so impressive. I mean, and I've had a number of deathmatch guys on the show, and like you, I mean, I have the utmost respect for the deathmatch guys. Not entirely my cup of tea in terms of style, but the thing that's interesting, having talked to a number of them, the thing that they fear the most in terms of deathmatch accessories is it's not the light tubes, it's not thumbtacks, it's Legos.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They hate being asked to bump onto Legos. And having stepped on Legos at various times in my life, I can't imagine taking a bump onto Legos. That would just be awful.
Well, wrestling internet Dante promises you this right now. You are going to have no choice but to call me a hardcore wrestler when I one day inevitably decide that I'm going to take a Lego bump and that I'm going to do the Lego dance with some other wrestler. And then you will have no choice but to call Dante the most hardcore wrestler you've ever seen in your life. But no, that's really interesting to hear. That's awesome to hear as well. Like I said, I've seen a couple of stories. I want to bring up quickly the one I don't know if you've seen it, but David Arquette, I think his name is right. Do you know that situation?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the match he had with Nick Gage.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is, there's a whole story then behind that, right? I'm sure you could have movies made on those matches alone. So again, like I said, nothing but respect for those reasons, because sometimes things can get out of control and then your life is literally on the line at that point.
Absolutely. Well, as far as what we have coming up on the Throwdown, this coming Tuesday, December 16th, 7 p.m. Eastern, I've got episode 183, and our guest is a Texas-based pro wrestler by the name of CJ Flores. And I'm actually a native Texan myself, so I've got a soft spot in my heart for Texas wrestling. And then this Thursday, the 18th, also 7 p.m. Eastern, episode 184. And our guest is actually another Texas-based wrestler, Aries Alexander. It just so happened that this week, both guys are Texas-based, which, like I said, I love it. And so definitely excited to have both of those guys, and have a whole bunch more stuff booked. So definitely keep an eye on my socials, and really exciting stuff is coming. But Dante, I want to thank you for your time. This has been an amazing conversation, and you have a bright future ahead of you, sir.
Thank you very much. And if I may say at the end here, first of all, shout out the Texans, shout out CJ Flores, shout out Aries. Didn't catch his last name there, but this is another thing that I love about wrestling, the variety of wrestling that's going on now. Again, more so, thank you. Thank you, not just you, but CCP, we said earlier, that joined in. Shout out them. I love wrestling. And of course, I throw down a map, because this is why this is so important, because it allows the wrestling fans, the people who we all do this for, to be able to explore and see and be invited to, or exposed to the different types of wrestling from all over the world. Like I said, from the UK myself to Texas over there in America, and all places in between. So I have to thank you so much for giving me this opportunity and allow me to come on your show. I'd be more than happy to come back if you'll have me when I've got a belt around my shoulder, I'm sure. But it's been an absolute honor.
Well, Dante, you can definitely consider yourself to be part of the Throwdown family now. And that means you have a standing invitation to come back anytime you want. If you've got something you want to talk about, just ping me and we will make it happen.
Thank you, good sir.
And, for those of you that have been watching this live, thank you. For those of you that'll be seeing this on replays and such, thank you for that. If you like what we have going here, definitely do the old like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'm going to sort of wrap things up with a little bit of comedy tonight. As we all know, we have Saturday night's main event with John Cena's final time in the ring. And I ran across this earlier, and it just made me laugh. So I had to kind of throw.
Now that's the match that I want to see. That's the match that I want to see.
Absolutely. So anyway, so until Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern with CJ Flores, be good to each other, love each other, and let's